So I'm getting into the tones around the eye. I want to sneak up on the eye, so if I squint at her eye, I can see how a lot of these values kind of merge together. I'm trying to use one value for everything. I call it a false value. The reason I call it a false value is because the value, even though I look at her and I see that she's got different shades of dark in her eye socket, if I use the same value for a few minutes, I can get at the shape of her eye probably a little bit better for me. So all this value I'm going to consolidate into one and just investigate the shape as though it's a painterly shape or something.
So who are some of your influences or inspirations, growing up as an artist and developing your style and just your own, I guess, way that you do things?
I grew up wanting to be an animator, and I just really like stop motion animation. That's what I wanted to do, and I love Frazetta.
Yeah,
I thought Frazetta was awesome.
Frank Frazetta.
I was pretty bummed out to hear when he died. Last year. He was like 82.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, last May, pretty much a year ago, right now, and then of course, going to museums and seeing, Rembrandt, Velázquez, and people like that, that really opened my eyes to the possibilities of drawing and painting. And I've just continued to really be interested in drawing from life. I think drawing from life is just the best thing around. And I don't really ever work from photographs because I just hate it.
You don't get the full form.
You don't get the full form. You don't get this human interaction. I mean, when you draw somebody from life, it's really two people working on the drawing. That's why Harold Speed in his drawing book had his sitter sign the drawing too. So,
cool.
And then there's something about the photo which also kind of distorts the perspective, and it just kind of freeze frames everything into an artificial focus, and it doesn't see with a passionate eye. So I think drawing from life is really, it's like salvation or something. I don't know.
Could you repeat real quick what you said before about the angles and form lines?
Yeah, every time I make one angle like this, where the angle begins and ends. For example, if I drop down to this is what we call the mental tubercle right here. This is we have two of them. 1, 2. Who asked the question?
Yeah, I can't quite see.
So we have this this angle down through here, where this begins and ends. I can raise a vertical plumb and investigate how it relates to the tear duct. I can lower that same vertical plumb and see where it's going regarding the pit of the neck. I can move a horizontal plumb and see just maybe how far up I get to the ear. And the same is true of this other point. So with one angle, it's really worth 5 lines. And that's another reason I think that the simplicity of the drawing is a necessary thing to go for in the beginning, because it allows the shapes to float around. It's almost like you float them around for a period of time. Does that help? Yeah. Does that answer your question or no?
Yeah.
All right. Kind of, sort of.
Did you actually pursue your animation any further, or did you just decide that life drawing was really for you?
The way it worked out was I started going to art school, and I was into painting, and my dad was a cop, and he said, we're not really trust fund kind of people, so figure out something that you can do where you're going to make a career out of this. And so I pursued portrait painting for quite a while. I thought I was going to be a portrait artist, and then that turned out to be mostly about working for photographs. And I just got more and more interested in this traditional idea of drawing and painting. My teacher had been a guy named Cedric Egley, and his dad went to the same art school that I went to, but in the 1920s. And so that took me to the archives department of the same school, and I started getting involved in all these old drawing techniques and all these great artists from this era that they call the American Renaissance, which include artists like Thayer and John Singer Sargent and people like that, who were just incredibly skilled. And it just sort of one thing led to another, and it seemed to really be fulfilling for me. So in my class, one of the things that we've done in Friday Night Drawing, especially the last few months, is break out the old school Art Students League drawings from the 1890s and look at them and talk about them and say, what are they doing? Why are they putting the head all the way up here and the foot all the way down there? You know, why is part of it unfinished and part of it is totally fully modeled? There's a lot to get at because they were building that school in the 1880s, 1870s, and there are all these discussions, you know, faculty minutes, things that they were trying to figure out. And I've just kind of been consumed with that for quite a while. I'm a big fan of the old school way of doing things because it involves skill, and I think knowledge is joy. They say knowledge is power, but if you're drawing in here, you know the anatomy, and you know where the points are, the planes are. You don't have to guess at it. You can play around with it. You can wait on it and go for it when the time is right.
Oh, if I may ask, what kind of pencil are you using there?
I'm using a Mitsubishi 2H. It's a Japanese pencil, and it's a high uni. I had a student in my class. Japanese students are great students. He says, "Teacher, your pencil's garbage," because I was using the wrong Mitsubishi, and so he turned me on to these, and these are good pencils. It's Tombow and Mitsubishi are really good pencils, and so I'm gonna lay out a tone here of 2H, and the 2H is going to be laying the groundwork for a heavier, darker value.
If I may ask, why for a simple drawing like that could we use a soft lead like the B range? What?
Sure. Well,
or is it dependent on the paper type as well? Like this is a newsprint.
Yeah. The paper has a resiliency, and the pencil has a certain aesthetic to it. So for me, laying it out in 2H at the beginning sort of replicates like a silver point kind of look in the beginning. And if I put in, let's say, a softer lead into this harder lead, if I put the softer lead onto the raw paper, it feels more rough to me, as though I can see the fibers of the paper under that soft lead. But if I put it into the 2H, it seems to melt into the 2H better. It seems to set up the right kind of specific value range that I'm after. You know, so I do that. I also use this tool called the stump quite a bit. And this has been the most vilified tool in all of classical drawing because they say it's a when in doubt, fuzz it out tool. And it's really not. If you look at there's a book that we reference in our drawing class by a guy named Frank Fowler. It's called Drawing in Charcoal and Crayon, and it was published in 1885. And he talks about how they actually did the drawing with the stump. Like they would take a vine charcoal. Take a break. Thank you. They would take a vine charcoal and draw everything out in line, and then would take this stuff called sauce, which is essentially punte. And you could see on some of the really old Art Students League drawings this big patch of blackened chalk. And they would roll the stump in that chalk, and they would paint in the darks.
Dan,
So
you want
that's how they
5
did it.
minutes? 5 minute break?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Everybody okay? We're gonna do another 20 minutes after this 5-minute break. Everybody okay?
Yep.
There's bathrooms to those doors. Take a right. You can see them there.
Oh, thank you.
Any questions, just hold off. You can ask them during the break. Okay?
Yeah, you can ask any questions you want. Right now, it's fine.